there's been very little royal chat. And I think it's arguably because the royal family, since the passing of the late Queen Elizabeth, has perhaps rather changed in terms of its importance to our culture and what it means to us. I sort of hope that that institution doesn't die away. I mean, if it does, he'll have far less to do. Rupert Bell is Talk's royal correspondent. What would he do without a bit of royal chat and scandal and chit-chat and everything else? Rupert, good evening to you. Good
evening, James. I really don't know. I go back to covering sport more or less most of the time, I suppose, rather than royal chat. But this is a busy time of year for the royals. They all get together. We'll see them tomorrow morning in Sandringham, making the walk to the church, which, when do you think 12 months ago, what happened just 3 weeks later, obviously it all unravelled with both the Princess of Wales and the King undergoing hospital treatment, and the year looked very different. But, you know, we saw the happy pictures 12 months ago, but a lot has happened in that intervening period for the royal family to try and regroup and, I suppose, maintain their relevance, you know, in the eyes of talking about British culture. You know, with the Queen being such a dominant force, the King is having to navigate his way through into the consciousnesses of the British public in terms of what his constitutional role is and how he fits in and what.
Now, there has been a lot of conversation about, as you say, the health of the royals. People will be looking towards the King and Queen as to their health, looking at William and Kate, who have had their own annus horribilis, I think it's been described, in terms of their health, and indeed, in particular, her health. But it would appear as if both of them have come through to the other side, seemingly much better, which is wonderful news. I'm assuming that we're not going to see sight nor sound of Andrew. You know, in the past, he sort of walked along sort of quietly behind them, but still been in vision. I'm assuming that this year, no Andrew.
I'm pretty sure not. I can't, unless there's a last-minute invitation to go to Sandringham, I can't see it happening. No.
No. OK, well, that's fair enough. Now, Sandringham always interests me, because I've been to Sandringham and had a look around the house and everything else, as one can do as a member of the public, and I was quite surprised by the place. It's absolutely filled with tut. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. I was expecting a nice royal residence with classy you know, pieces and everything else, and it's just filled with absolute tut. I mean, do they enjoy it there? Do you know what, you know, gets on? I suppose they only go once a year, so it is what it is. But, I mean, do they enjoy it or not really?
I think they do. You know, they get together tonight. I think they do the presents tonight. They have a bit of a meal tonight. Then they get ready for church, and then it's sort of games, I think. I think they do enjoy going to Sandringham. There's going to be 40-odd people there for lunch, extended family. So I think it's going to be quite a do for them.
OK, quite a do. Well, one likes quite a do. In terms of, you know, royal stories, as you say, do you think the royal family has done enough to ingratiate itself into, I suppose, a new era where, for all of us alive, the only person that we knew as the head of state, as the, you know, the leader of, you know, that institution, that family, was Queen Elizabeth? It's always tricky taking over from somebody who's that good, that popular, even though Charles has been, you know, in the wings and waiting for so many years. I've had the pleasure of being in the same room as him. He's enormously, you know, effusive, very effective communicator. He's very funny. He's a great speaker. He's really prepped for this job. Having said that, the Queen, when she came to the throne, was very young and was able to instill perhaps, you know, a different sense and sentiment to that role, whereas he is but a caretaker, one would say.
He is a caretaker, but you actually look at where Britain was in the 50s to when it was when the Queen died. The cultural shift, the change, enormous. Whereas the King is here and now, and he's got to take up the reins and leave, as you say, that he's a changing of the guard for William, because he knows, and it's been highlighted this year, his own mortality, that he's probably not, well, if he get 10, 15 years, you just don't know.
OK, so let's just take that point, and then I've been asking those who are listening and, you know, to get involved in the conversation, how you define British culture and actually what threatens it. I mean, if, for example, the monarchy were to be threatened in terms of their existence or popularity or otherwise, that would have a very significant undermining of British culture. How important do you think monarchy and the royal family are to that British culture? I mean, I'm, you know, everybody has a piece of royal memorabilia or something kicking around their house. I mean, you've got stamps with their faces on, you've got coins with their faces on. I've got mugs in the beach up with Andrew and Sarah on, because, I mean, I love that, you know, because if somebody drops them on the floor, nobody cares. But, you know, I think, you know, culturally speaking, the royal family, very important to the nation.
Absolutely. Look, it's this, you know, 1066 and all that. Defines us. We are defined as a monarchy. Of course, there are going to be some dissenters and saying should we be having a monarchy? But until they can come up with something that actually is a better system, do we just want maybe another ex-politician being our head of state, if that's the way we go? That's the problem for what do you bring in? And the royal family is definitely something that defines British culture historically throughout the years. You know, Buckingham Palace, you know, people look at this country and define it with its monarchy. And the king is fully aware of that. And he's got to make sure that he's seen to be embracing all sides. And hence the reason why he's going to a non-denominational church for his Christmas message.
Well, I'm not surprised by that, given the problems within the Church of England, of which I guess he's nominally head. I guess you wouldn't want to touch that organisation with a barge pole. But let's just talk a little bit about the speech, just before we bring in the words of, you know, our other spiritual leader. In terms of what he's going to say, he is breaking from tradition. He is doing it from this chapel sort of connected to a hospital. And I suppose, you know, illustrating his own, whether it's mortality or indeed health battles. So it doesn't matter whether you're rich, poor, royal or not. You're going to have to face health issues, and sometimes, you know, they can be a real challenge.
They can be, and I think he is a deeply religious man, and obviously he is head of the church, the Anglican Church, which has obviously had its own annus horribilis, without question. So, but he does want to try and be a monarch for all. And it means this is a place where people can go, not just Christians, but all people. And I think that's, again, symbolic, that he wants to make sure that he's seen to be king for all. But it's a difficult negotiating sort of path, you know, because obviously he is the head of the Anglican Church. But I mean, I'm sure he's been exasperated by what's going on within it. And there's a lot of dissenting voices within its own organisation. But for the king, it's very important to highlight his faith, but to make sure that that faith then can embrace all other faiths and bring them together. And I'm sure that will be part of his message tomorrow afternoon. I'm certainly
sure that it will be. Meanwhile, we've created our own very own, I suppose, voice of reason and common sense for our station and our programme. What would Margaret say? What would Margaret do? Is perhaps the inspiration behind it. But I think that, Rupert, I'd like to. There she is. I'd like to perhaps reflect with you as to what a Iron Lady might have to say about maybe the governance of our nation.
Under my leadership, I abolished the GLC. Some imbecile decided an authority and London mayor was a good idea. Now look, you have Sadiq Khan. My handbag has more common sense than that man. Talking of common sense, who created 20-mile-an-hour speed limits? Who invented double baby buggies or the plastic bottle tops that cannot be unattached from the bottles? And which buffoon got rid of the sparkly quality street wrappers, replacing them with dull paper ones? They've ruined Christmas.
Well, there we go. You see, that's from a Iron Lady. I think she's got a point, hasn't she, Rupert?
I'm not going to disagree with much that she said.
I told you she's the voice of common sense. More Margaret.
Good old Margaret, yes. The 20-mile-an-hour thing, that does my head in. I keep getting speeding tickets. But there we go. So, but I'm sure the voice of reason rattling a few cages there, nothing like that to set it up for Christmas. As we go forward into much love and Christmas greetings to all. But Margaret saying as it is.
There we go. Rupert Bell, Talk's royal correspondent. Thank you very much indeed for joining us this evening here on Talk. It's much appreciated.